A talented artist's paintings begin to reveal dark secrets about one of America's wealthiest families, forcing her to choose between exposing the truth and protecting herself. When shocking evidence emerges, her art becomes more than just paintings. It becomes a weapon that could topple an empire. Before we dive into this powerful story, we'd love to know where in the world you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more captivating stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Are you sure about this, Nathan? Brooke's hand trembled, causing a wayward splash of cerulean blue across her latest mural. The phone pressed against her ear felt impossibly heavy, each word from her husband of 3 years cutting deeper than the last. The afternoon sun streamed through the studio skylight, casting long shadows across the nearly finished piece, a commissioned work depicting hope and new beginnings. The irony wasn't lost on her as she stood there, 5 months pregnant, listening to her husband methodically dismantle their future. "I can't do this, Brooke." Nathan's voice cracked, a rare display of emotion from the usually composed business magnate. The pregnancy, it's made everything too real. The responsibility, the expectations. I'm not cut out for fatherhood. My family's legacy, the pressure. Our baby isn't a business transaction, Brooke interrupted, her free hand instinctively moving to her swollen belly. The child within stirred, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. "We created this life together, Nathan. Whatever fears you have, we can face them as a team." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Brooke's gaze drifted to the half-finished mural before her, a phoenix rising from swirling ashes, its wings spread wide in defiance of gravity. She'd chosen the imagery to represent rebirth and triumph over adversity. Now it felt like a mockery. "I've already arranged everything," Nathan finally spoke, his voice distant and clinical. "The divorce papers will arrive tomorrow. You'll be well provided for, both you and the baby. I'm transferring $5 million to your account. It's better this way." Brooke's paintbrush clattered to the floor, splattering blue across her worn studio shoes. "Better for whom, Nathan? For you? For your precious family name? Or for this child who'll grow up wondering why their father chose fear over love?" "Brooke? Don't Brooke me," she cut him off, tears streaming down her face. "You don't get to make this sound gentle. You're abandoning us. At least have the courage to call it what it is." Through the phone, she heard the distinct sound of a car door closing, followed by an engine starting. He was already gone, had probably made this call from the airport. The realization hit her like a physical blow. "I truly am sorry," Nathan whispered, his voice barely audible over the engine's purr. "Someday you'll understand why I couldn't stay." The line went dead. Brooke stood motionless in her studio, the afternoon light painting her tears in golden hues. Her gaze fixed on the Phoenix mural, its unfinished form a testament to promises left unkept. The paint on her shoes was drying, turning a deeper shade of blue, the same color she'd used for the Phoenix's wings, meant to symbolize freedom and hope. Her phone buzzed with a notification. The money had already been transferred. $5 million. The price tag he'd put on their future, their family, their love. Moving as if in a dream, Brooke picked up her fallen brush. With mechanical precision, she began cleaning her workspace, her movements slow and deliberate. Each item she touched felt foreign, as if belonging to another life, another woman who still believed in forever. The baby kicked, a gentle reminder that she wasn't truly alone. Brooke pressed her paint-stained hand against her belly, leaving a perfect blue handprint on her smock. "It's just us now, little one," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But we'll make it beautiful anyway." She turned back to the Phoenix mural, studying it with new eyes. The rising bird seemed different now, less triumphant, more desperate in its escape from the flames. With steady hands she began to paint again, but the colors she chose were darker, more intense. The Phoenix's eyes, once meant to show determination, now held a fierce kind of grief. Hours passed, marked only by the shifting shadows and the occasional movement of her child within. As the sun began to set, Brooke stepped back from the finished mural. The Phoenix still rose from the ashes, but it was no longer a symbol of simple rebirth. Now it carried the weight of reality, the understanding that sometimes rising from the ashes meant leaving pieces of yourself behind. Her phone had been silent since Nathan's call, though she knew it wouldn't last. Soon there would be lawyers and papers to sign, questions to answer, a life to untangle. But for now, in the fading light of her studio, Brooke allowed herself to feel the full weight of her solitude. She gathered her supplies slowly, each movement a conscious choice to keep moving forward. The building was quiet, most other artists having left hours ago. In this stillness, she could hear the soft sounds of her own breathing, the distant hum of the city, the whisper of brush bristles being cleaned. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges: medical appointments to face alone, a nursery to plan in an apartment suddenly too large, a future to reimagine. But tonight, surrounded by the tools of her craft and the evidence of her passion, Brooke made a silent promise to her unborn child. Their story wouldn't be defined by abandonment, but by the art they would create from it. She touched the phoenix one last time, her fingers tracing the edge of its wing where dark met light. In that moment she understood, this wasn't just a commission piece anymore. It was the first brushstroke of her new life, painted in shades of loss and determination, signed with tears and sealed with the promise of tomorrow. The divorce papers arrived exactly as Nathan promised, delivered by a courier who seemed almost apologetic. Brooke signed them without reading, her signature as broken as her heart. Then she painted. For 3 days straight she hardly slept. Empty takeout containers littered her studio floor, her phone lay dead in a corner, and dozens of half-finished canvases lined the walls, each darker than the last. The phoenix from her hospital mural had evolved into something else entirely, writhing in darkness, its wings bound by chains of gold, wealth without freedom. The ultrasound appointment card sat on her work table, splattered with paint. Tuesday 10 a.m. She'd meant to tell Nathan about it before everything. Now it felt like a deadline looming over her, marking the first of many moments she'd face alone. Brooke? Rachel's voice echoed through the studio, followed by the sound of her heels on concrete. Your door was unlocked and you haven't been answering my... Her sister stopped short, taking in the scene. Oh honey. I'm fine, Brooke muttered, not turning around. Just working. When's the last time you ate? Or slept? Rachel approached carefully, navigating around scattered art supplies. Her eyes widened at the new paintings. These are intense. Brooke's brush slashed another dark line across the canvas. He had his lawyer deliver them. Like I'm some business transaction he needed to close. Rachel picked up the nearest painting, a woman dissolving into shadows, her heart replaced by a ticking clock. These are different from your usual work. Everything's different now. Brooke's hand trembled, sending paint droplets flying. I recorded the baby's heartbeat. Before I remembered there was no one to send it to. Rachel set down the painting and crossed the room, wrapping her arms around her sister. Brooke resisted for a moment before collapsing into the embrace, her paint-stained hands clutching Rachel's pristine blazer. I can't stay here, Brooke whispered. Every corner of this studio. We planned everything here. The nursery designs, the future exhibitions, our life together. Then you'll move in with me, Rachel said firmly. The spare room is yours for as long as you need. The next morning, Rachel drove Brooke to her appointment. The waiting room was filled with couples, their shared excitement a cruel reminder of what she'd lost. When the technician called her name, Rachel squeezed her hand. Want me to come in? Brooke shook her head. This was something she needed to face alone. The screen flickered to life and suddenly there it was, a perfect profile, tiny hands, a beating heart. Would you like to know the gender? The technician asked gently. No, Brooke answered, memorizing every detail. Some surprises should stay beautiful. That afternoon, as Rachel helped pack up her studio, Brooke started a new series. The first piece showed a pregnant woman standing in a storm, but instead of rain, golden coins fell around her. Wealth that couldn't touch the solitude in her eyes. These are going to be important, Rachel observed, watching her sister work. They're not just paintings anymore, are they? They're my voice now. Brooke added shadows beneath the coins, making them look heavy, burdensome. $5 million, but he couldn't stay for a 10-minute ultrasound. Moving day brought unexpected catharsis. Each box packed was a memory addressed and filed away. Rachel's apartment was smaller but warmer, with a room perfect for a nursery and a corner that caught the morning light. Ideal for a smaller studio space. As they unpacked, Brooke found her old sketchbooks filled with bright, hopeful designs. She set up her easel by the window and began to paint again, but now her work had evolved. Dark colors dominated her canvases, but threads of gold and silver wove through the shadows. Pain transformed into something powerful. The gallery called, Rachel mentioned casually over dinner. They want to see your new work. Said they heard about everything. Of course they did. Brooke touched her growing belly. The abandoned wife of Nathan Walker, painting her tragedy for all to see. No, Rachel corrected, picking up one of the new pieces. A brilliant artist finding her true voice. These aren't just about pain, Brooke. They're about survival. That night, in her new room, Brooke started what would become the centerpiece of her series. A triptych of a woman shedding golden chains, each panel showing her becoming more real, more powerful, more herself. In the final panel, she held not wealth but a small, glowing light against her heart. The baby moved as she painted, active as always when she worked. Brooke smiled, adding touches of dawn breaking through her painted darkness. "We're going to be okay," she whispered to herself and her child. "We're going to make our own light." Rachel found her asleep at the easel at dawn, peaceful for the first time in days. She covered her sister with a blanket and studied the unfinished triptych. Where Brooke's previous work had been about beauty and hope, these new paintings were about truth, raw, painful, but undeniably powerful. The ultrasound photo sat on the windowsill, catching the morning light. Rachel placed it carefully beside Brooke's paints, a reminder that even in darkness, new life finds a way to grow. She'd help her sister rebuild, one brushstroke at a time, until the canvas of their lives showed not just tears but triumph. "Your blood pressure is concerning, Ms. Anderson." Dr. Martinez frowned at the readings, then at Brooke's swollen ankles. "The protein levels in your urine suggest possible preeclampsia. We need to monitor you more closely." Brooke gripped the edge of the examination table, the paper crinkling beneath her fingers. At 6 months pregnant, she thought the worst was behind her. "Is the baby?" "The baby is developing normally," Dr. Martinez assured her. "But you need rest. Real rest, not just moving your easel to your bedroom." Rachel, who'd insisted on accompanying her to this appointment, was already taking notes. "What about the gallery opening next week?" 2 hours maximum, the doctor conceded. "And you sit the whole time." Outside the clinic, Rachel helped Brooke into the car. "We can postpone the show. Marcus will understand." "No." Brooke buckled her seatbelt beneath her growing belly. "These paintings, they're keeping me sane. I need this." The gallery opening exceeded everyone's expectations. Brooke held court from a carefully positioned chair, watching as New York's art elite moved through her pain-made beautiful. Her Dark Phoenix series dominated one wall, each piece showing the bird bound by different golden chains, each struggle more poignant than the last. "The symbolism is extraordinary," a critic from the New York Times commented, studying the triptych of the woman shedding chains. "The way wealth becomes a prison, freedom found in its rejection." Obviously inspired by your situation with Nathan Walker. "My art speaks for itself," Brooke replied diplomatically, one hand resting on her belly. The baby had been active all evening, as if sensing the excitement. Marcus Chin, the gallery owner, couldn't stop smiling. "The Times is doing a full feature. Art News wants an exclusive interview. And every piece has sold, some for triple the asking price." "Who's buying?" Rachel asked sharply. "Collectors, museums?" "The Whitney is particularly interested in the Phoenix series." Brooke noticed Rachel's frown. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." But later, in the car home, Rachel voiced her concerns. "The media attention. It's not just about your art. They're fascinated by the story, the pregnant artist abandoned by her millionaire husband, turning tragedy into triumph. Let them be fascinated." Brooke watched the city lights blur past. "My paintings tell the truth. That's what worries me." The next few weeks brought a whirlwind of attention. Art magazines praised her fearless exploration of wealth as bondage. Social commentators analyzed her work as a feminist statement on marriage and autonomy. Financial blogs speculated about the Walker family's reaction to their dirty laundry being aired in oils and acrylics. Through it all, Brooke painted. Despite doctors' orders, she found herself at her easel at odd hours, driven by an urgency she couldn't explain. Her new pieces grew larger, more complex. The bound phoenix evolved into a series of escaping birds, each breaking different chains: greed, expectation, tradition, fear. "Your work is becoming more political," Marcus observed during a studio visit. "The latest pieces, they're not just about personal pain anymore." Brooke stepped back from her current canvas, where golden towers cast shadows like prison bars. "Maybe pain is political. Maybe the personal and the powerful are the same thing." Her blood pressure continued to rise. Dr. Martinez prescribed bed rest, but Brooke negotiated. She would rest, but her easel stayed within reach. Rachel converted her living room into a temporary studio, filling it with natural light and medical monitoring equipment. "The New Yorker wants to do a profile," Rachel announced one morning, sorting through the growing pile of media requests. "They're calling you the voice of disenfranchised women everywhere." "I'm just telling my story," Brooke murmured, adding shadows to her latest piece, a pregnant woman standing before a crumbling empire of gold. "Your story is resonating. Look at these comments." Rachel held up her tablet, showing responses to Brooke's latest exhibition photos. Women sharing their own experiences of abandonment, of choosing themselves over wealth, of finding strength in solitude. The baby kicked vigorously and Brooke's vision blurred momentarily. Rachel was at her side instantly, checking her blood pressure monitor. "That's it. No more painting today. Just let me finish this section," the doctor said. The doctor doesn't understand. Brooke's hand trembled on her brush. "These paintings, they're not just art anymore. They're becoming something else. Something important." Rachel studied her sister's face, then the canvas before them. The crumbling empire piece was different from the others, more urgent, more revealing. "Important enough to risk your health? Your baby's health?" Brooke lowered her brush, suddenly tired. "You're right. Help me to bed." That night, unable to sleep, Brooke watched moonlight play across her unfinished painting. The golden towers in their painted world seemed to shift and change, revealing shadows that felt almost like warnings. Her child moved within her, a reminder of what really mattered. She touched her belly, making a silent promise. "We'll tell our story, little one. But we'll be here to tell it together." The next day's mail brought more gallery offers, interview requests, and a single blank envelope. Inside was a newspaper clipping about the Walker family's latest business acquisition, with 3 words scrawled in red: "Blood Money Kills." Brooke stared at the message, her artist's eye noting how the red ink caught the light like fresh paint, or something darker. For the first time, she wondered if her paintings were revealing more truth than she'd intended. More anonymous envelopes arrived over the next week. Each contained different newspaper clippings about the Walker family's business dealings, all marked with cryptic notes in red ink. But the last one was different. It included a USB drive. "Don't look at it," Rachel insisted, trying to take the drive from Brooke's hands. "Whatever's on there, it's not worth the risk." But Brooke had already seen enough. The drive contained financial documents, transaction records, photographs, evidence of things she couldn't unsee. "These aren't just business dealings, Rachel. They're crimes." "All the more reason to stay away from it." Rachel paced the living room, agitated. "You're 7 months pregnant. You need to focus on. There's a name here." Brooke held up a business card that had fallen from the latest envelope. "Tyler Matthews, investigative journalist. He broke the Kingston Industries corruption story last year." No, absolutely not. But Brooke was already dialing. They met Matthews at a quiet cafe of Rachel's choosing. The journalist looked younger than expected, with kind eyes that contrasted with his reputation for ruthless reporting. "You shouldn't have called me," he said, settling into their corner booth. "But I'm glad you did. These documents," Brooke pushed a copy across the table, keeping her voice low. "What exactly am I looking at?" Tyler glanced around before answering. "Evidence of what many have suspected for years. The Walker family's empire isn't built on just real estate and tech investments. There's money laundering, systematic fraud, connections to organizations that..." He paused, studying her face. "You really had no idea, did you? Nathan always said his family had high expectations." Brooke's hand trembled as she lifted her tea. "I thought he meant their corporate legacy, their public image. Not criminal enterprises?" Tyler supplied. "Mrs. Walker. Anderson," she corrected. "I've resumed my maiden name." "Ms. Anderson," he amended. "These documents could bring down one of the most powerful families in America. But they're also dangerous. Whoever sent them to you was taking a huge risk." The baby kicked hard as if sensing her distress. Brooke breathed deeply, trying to stay calm. "Why me? Why not send them directly to a journalist?" "Because you're the perfect source." Tyler leaned forward. "The abandoned pregnant wife, betrayed by the Walker's golden boy. The public already sympathizes with you. Your art shows have made headlines. You have credibility, and a target on my back." Rachel's voice cut in as she slid into the booth beside Brooke. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was hell." She fixed Tyler with a steely gaze. "My sister is 7 months pregnant. She doesn't need this stress." "What I need," Brooke interjected, "is to protect my child." She met Tyler's eyes. "If what's in those documents is true, is this why Nathan left? To shield us from his family?" "It's possible," Tyler admitted. "But intention doesn't equal protection. Now that you have these documents..." "I'm a liability," Brooke finished. The realization settled heavy in her chest. Rachel's hand found hers under the table. "We need to get you out of the city. My beach house would be the first place they'd look." Tyler pulled out a business card, scribbling on the back. "I have a contact. She handles witness protection cases unofficially." Until we can verify these documents and publish the story? No. Brooke's voice was firm. I won't run. I won't hide. Later that afternoon, as they left the cafe, Rachel grabbed Brooke's arm. That black SUV. It's been parked there since we arrived. Brooke felt a chill despite the warm day. Maybe it's just... And the man reading his newspaper hasn't turned a page in an hour. Rachel's grip tightened. We're being watched. That night, in the safety of their apartment, Brooke started a new painting. Dark figures in suits surrounded a pregnant woman, but she held a blazing torch, its light casting their shadows into sharp relief. You're sure about this? Rachel asked, watching her work. We could leave tonight. Go somewhere they couldn't find us. No, Brooke said, adding another layer of light to the torch. Running won't protect us. But truth might. She worked through the night, the painting evolving as her understanding deepened. The dark figures gained familiar features, hints of the Walker family's distinctive traits. The pregnant woman's torch became a paintbrush, its light revealing hidden documents in the shadows. Dawn brought more surveillance, subtle but unmistakable. A woman who photographed their building too carefully. A car that followed Rachel to work. Phones that sometimes echoed during calls. Tyler's texts grew more urgent. They know you have the documents. Be careful. Trust no one. But it was the note slipped under their door that finally made Brooke's decision for her. Written in that same red ink, your art reveals too much. Time to choose, silence or safety? Brooke touched her belly, feeling her child move beneath her hand. We'll choose truth, she whispered. But we'll be smart about it. She called Tyler one last time. I can't be your source. Not now. But keep digging. The truth is in those documents, and maybe in my paintings too if you know where to look. That evening she painted over the dark figures in her latest work, transforming them into abstract shadows. The pregnant woman remained, but now her torch illuminated a path forward. One that would require patience, cunning, and the courage to face whatever darkness lay ahead. They're watching us, Rachel said from the window where another black SUV had appeared. Let them watch, Brooke replied, cleaning her brushes with careful precision. Sometimes the best way to hide truth is to paint it in plain sight. The Metropolitan Museum of Art's modern wing hummed with anticipation. Brooke's latest exhibition, Shadows of Legacy, had drawn an unprecedented crowd. Her evolution from personal pain to societal commentary had caught the art world's attention, though none realized just how deep that commentary went. The New York Times is calling you the voice of your generation, Rachel said, showing Brooke the latest review on her phone. Anderson's work transcends personal tragedy to expose the rot beneath society's gilded surface. Brooke smoothed her flowing maternity dress, designed to accommodate her 8-month belly while maintaining the sophistication expected at such events. Her centerpiece, a massive triptych depicting golden towers crumbling to reveal darkness within, dominated the main wall. She'd painted it after receiving those documents, encoding what she'd learned into symbols and shadows. Ms. Anderson? A museum curator approached. There's someone who specifically requested to speak with you about acquiring The Price of Silence. Brooke followed the curator's gesture to a familiar silhouette standing before her darkest piece. A man in a golden cage, his hands stained red. Her heart stopped. Nathan. I'll handle this, Rachel started, but Brooke caught her arm. No, she said quietly. It's time. The clicking of cameras followed her approach. Nathan turned as she neared, and she saw 8 months of suffering etched in his face. He'd lost weight and silver threaded his temples. Changes that shouldn't have happened so quickly to someone his age. Your work has gotten darker, he said softly, eyes fixed on the painting. Life has gotten darker. Brooke kept her voice neutral, aware of watching eyes. Why are you here, Nathan? Because you know. His gaze dropped to her belly, then back to the painting. The cage, the blood money, the shadows in the corner shaped like ledgers. You received the documents? The baby kicked sharply as if recognizing its father's voice. Brooke steadied herself against the wall, and something in Nathan's eyes cracked. Did you send them? She asked. No. Nathan stepped closer, lowering his voice. But I wish I had. Maybe then you'd understand why I left. Understand? Brooke's laugh was bitter. You abandoned your pregnant wife and tried to buy your way out of responsibility. What's to understand? They threatened you? The words tumbled out in a harsh whisper. My father, when he learned about the pregnancy, he said you'd be a liability, that you'd never understand the necessity of certain business practices, that your art made you too visible, too likely to notice things. Another kick, stronger this time. Brooke pressed a hand to her side and something in Nathan's eyes cracked. Is the baby okay? No thanks to you. She straightened, forcing steel into her spine. Your family's business practices? You mean the money laundering? The fraud? Is that why you ran? To protect your inheritance? To protect you? His control slipped, drawing glances from nearby patrons. More quietly he added, they don't just destroy careers, Brooke. They destroy lives. I thought if I left, cut all ties, they'd leave you alone. The baby moved again, a rolling sensation that nearly took her breath. Nathan's hand twitched as if fighting the urge to reach out. Your father's empire, Brooke said carefully, it's all built on blood money, isn't it? That's what this painting means to you. It's worse than you know. Nathan's eyes darted around the room. And now, these paintings, they're seeing the truth in them. You've made yourself a target again. I made myself strong, Brooke corrected. Something you never understood. She turned to the painting, to the man in his golden cage. The documents are with someone who can use them. If anything happens to me, don't. Fear flashed across Nathan's face. Don't tell me more. Just be careful. Please. He reached into his jacket, withdrawing an envelope. My private number. If you ever need, if the baby. He stopped, swallowing hard. I know I don't deserve it, but please. If either of you are ever in danger. Brooke took the envelope, tucking it into her clutch. Goodbye, Nathan. She walked away, back straight, head high, feeling his eyes follow her retreat. The baby had settled, as if sensing the confrontation's end. Around her, gallery patrons continued to admire her work, unaware they were standing in the middle of a battlefield. Later that night, alone in her studio, Brooke started a new painting. A pregnant woman stood before a crumbling empire, her shadow cast not in darkness, but in brilliant, defiant light. In her hands she held not a weapon, but a brush, proof that sometimes the greatest acts of revolution were painted in colors only truth could reveal. Your father's trying to be brave, she whispered to her unborn child. In all the wrong ways. She worked through the night, adding layers of meaning to her newest piece. The woman's brush dripped gold, but where it fell, it revealed documents, ledgers, evidence hidden in plain sight. In the background, shadows took the shape of men in suits, watching but unable to stop the truth from spreading across the canvas. By dawn, she had made her decision. The documents Nathan's family feared were already safe with Tyler. But there were other truths, other secrets she could paint, ones that would make the walkers look more closely, make them wonder just how much she knew, just how much she could reveal. Art had always been her voice. Now it would be her weapon, her shield, and maybe, just maybe, her path to justice. The text came at midnight, your studio. No. It's important? Brooke stared at Nathan's message, one hand resting on her belly. After his gallery appearance 3 days ago, she'd hoped he'd keep his distance. The baby stirred restlessly, matching her unease. You shouldn't go, Rachel insisted over the phone. Let me call the police. No police, Brooke said firmly. I'll be fine. The studio has security cameras and the night guard knows me. At least let me come with you. Stay home, Rachel. Please. Brooke grabbed her coat. If anything feels wrong, I'll leave immediately. The studio was eerily quiet at night, her paintings casting strange shadows in the emergency lighting. Nathan stood before her newest work, the crumbling empire piece, his shoulders tense. You need to stop painting these, he said without turning. They're seeing the truth in them now. The symbols, the hidden meanings. Your family's paranoid if they think art can expose. They've started intensive surveillance. Nathan finally faced her, his expression haunted. My father's hired people to watch you. Document everyone you meet with. They know about Tyler Matthews. The baby kicked hard, responding to her spike of fear. How do you know this? Because I'm the one who convinced them to watch instead of act. His voice cracked. I've been trying to protect you, but these paintings, they're too close to the truth, Brooke. Too revealing. So I should what? Stop painting? Hide. She gestured to her belly. I'm about to be a mother, Nathan. I won't raise our child in fear. Then help me expose them. He stepped closer, pulling out a phone. I've been gathering evidence for months. Account numbers, transaction records, proof of everything. But I need someone they won't suspect. Someone who can get the information to the right people. Brooke backed away. You want me to be your mole? After everything? I want you to be safe. Nathan ran a hand through his disheveled hair. My father's empire is crumbling. He's getting desperate. These paintings, they're like accusations in color and shadow. He sees threats everywhere now. Before Brooke could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from Rachel, get out now. Two men watching your studio. Black SUV. You were followed, Brooke realized, her blood running cold. Nathan's face paled. He moved to the window, careful to stay in shadows. We need to get you out of here. There's a back exit through the storage room. I know my own studio. Brooke gathered her coat, mind racing. How do I know this isn't a setup? That you're not working with them? Because I never stopped loving you. The words hung in the air between them. Both of you? Another text from Rachel. Police contacted. Coming your way. I have to go, Brooke said. And you need to leave. Separately. Take this. Nathan pressed a small USB drive into her hand. Everything's here. Bank records, client lists, proof of where the money comes from. Just be careful how you use it. The next morning, Rachel burst into Brooke's apartment, her face ashen. We have a problem. She pulled up surveillance footage on her tablet, cameras outside Brooke's building, across the street, at nearby intersections. They're watching everything. Every person you meet, every place you go. Brooke sank into a chair, one hand protectively over her belly. How did you get this? I have friends in cybersecurity. Rachel's voice was grim. This isn't just surveillance, Brooke. It's preparation. For what? For whatever they think they need to do to keep their secrets safe. Brooke moved to her easel, where her latest painting stood unfinished, a woman emerging from golden shadows, holding what looked like documents in her hands. My exhibition opens next week? No. Rachel shook her head. You're not staying for that. Pack what you need. We're leaving tonight. Rachel. Look at this. Rachel pulled up more footage. Men in suits entering Brooke's gallery after hours. Others photographing visitors to her exhibitions. They're not just watching you. They're studying your art, analyzing every detail. The latest pieces especially. Brooke touched her canvas, where hidden in the shadows were subtle references to the documents Nathan had given her, banking numbers disguised as dates, transaction codes woven into background patterns. The beach house, Rachel said firmly. It's remote, secure, and in my friend Madison's name. They won't think to look there. And my exhibition? Marcus can handle it. Say you're on doctor's orders to rest before the birth. Rachel was already packing, efficient as always. Right now, we need to focus on keeping you and the baby safe. That night, as they drove out of the city, Brooke watched the lights fade in the rearview mirror. Her phone buzzed with a message from Nathan. They know I met you. Be careful. Trust no one. Not even him, Rachel said, catching her sister's expression. Especially not him. Brooke touched the USB drive in her pocket, then her belly where the baby kicked steadily. She thought of her unfinished painting, of all the truths still waiting to be revealed. Sometimes safety meant knowing when to step back, when to let the shadows gather before bringing them into light. The beach house has good light for painting, Rachel offered, reading her thoughts. Good, Brooke said quietly. Because I'm not done telling our story. I'm just changing how I tell it. They drove through the night, leaving the city and its watchers behind. But in Brooke's mind, new images were already forming. Paintings that would tell the truth in ways even the walkers couldn't silence. Sometimes the most powerful revelations came not in shouts, but in whispers, painted in colors only the wise would recognize. Rachel's beach house in Hampton Bays was a far cry from Brooke's Manhattan studio, but the sound of waves crashing against the shore brought an unexpected peace. She'd set up a makeshift studio in the sunroom, where morning light painted everything in gentle gold. You know, a voice called from the deck, most people come here to relax, not work. Brooke turned to find Madison Cooper, their new neighbor, leaning against the doorframe. The former gallery owner turned beach recluse had become a daily visitor, bringing food, conversation, and a welcomed normalcy to their self-imposed exile. Painting is how I relax, Brooke replied, stepping back from her easel. This piece was different from her recent work, softer, though no less truthful. A pregnant woman stood on a beach at sunrise, her shadow transforming into waves. It's beautiful, Madison moved closer, studying the canvas. Your other work was all fire and exposure. This is healing. That obvious, huh? Brooke smiled, wiping paint from her hands. At nearly 9 months pregnant, every movement had become deliberate, measured. Only to someone who's been there. Madison settled into a nearby chair. The art world's buzzing about your sudden disappearance, by the way. Art News is calling it your coastal revelation period. Brooke's phone lit up with another message from Nathan. Board meeting today. Big decisions. Stay safe. She'd been receiving similar cryptic warnings daily. Madison noticed her expression darken. Bad news? Just complications. Brooke set the phone face down. The father of my baby thinks he's protecting us by feeding me information about his family's crimes. As if knowledge makes up for abandonment, does it? Before Brooke could answer, Rachel burst in with armloads of baby supplies. The nursery's almost ready. Madison, you're a lifesaver with these donations. My sister's kids outgrew them, Madison shrugged. Better than storing them. Brooke turned back to her painting, adding touches of light breaking through clouds. The media speculation about her disappearance had grown wilder by the day. Some suggested she'd been paid off by the Walkers to vanish. Others theorized she was gathering material for an exposé. The truth was both simpler and more complex. Here, in this peaceful exile, she'd begun a new series, Safe Harbors. Each painting showed the same pregnant woman in different sanctuaries. A garden at dawn, a forest clearing, a mountain lake. Places of transition, moments between what was and what could be. Your art blog is exploding, Rachel mentioned that evening over dinner. People are analyzing your last exhibition pieces, finding meanings you never intended. Or did I? Brooke smiled mysteriously. She deliberately layered her recent works with multiple interpretations. Let the Walkers see threats in every brushstroke while others found hope. Her phone buzzed again. Nathan, they're moving money offshore. Big amounts. Be ready? You should block his number, Rachel said, reading over her shoulder. And miss potential warnings? Brooke pushed her plate away. He might be our only window into what they're planning. Later that night, unable to sleep, Brooke wandered to her studio. The moonlight transformed her latest painting, casting new shadows that seemed to move with the tide. She added subtle touches, a document hidden in wave foam, numbers disguised as seashells, truth wrapped in beauty. Madison found her there at dawn, adding final touches. You've started a whole series, she observed, noting the other canvases lined up against the wall. Each one a different refuge. Safe harbors, Brooke explained. Places where truth can rest before continuing its journey. And what journey is your truth taking? Before Brooke could answer, she felt a sharp pain. Her hand flew to her belly. Brooke? Madison was instantly alert. Just Braxton Hicks, Brooke assured her, but her voice wavered. Dr. Phillips said they'd increase as we get closer. Madison wasn't convinced. Rachel, get the hospital bag. Not yet, Brooke insisted, though she allowed herself to be led to a chair. I need to finish this piece first. The art can wait. But the truth can't. Brooke looked at her unfinished painting, where the pregnant woman's shadow held secrets in its depths. Everything's changing, Madison. Not just with the baby, but with what Nathan's warning us about. When the storm breaks, then you'll face it, Madison said firmly. But right now you rest. Doctor's orders. That night, as Rachel and Madison prepared the house for the baby's imminent arrival, Brooke added one final touch to her painting, a light on the horizon, breaking through storm clouds. Not hope exactly, but possibility. A reminder that even the darkest secrets eventually found their way to light. Her phone buzzed one last time. Nathan, board meeting ended. Father suspects everything. Keep painting your safe harbors. You'll need them soon. Brooke touched her belly, feeling the baby's strong movements. We're ready, she whispered to herself, her child, and whatever truth was about to break free. Our harbor is strong enough for any storm. The story broke at dawn. Brooke was in her sunroom studio when Rachel burst in, tablet in hand, face pale with excitement. Turn on the TV. Now. The headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Walker Empire under federal investigation. Heir apparent turns whistleblower. Nathan's photo dominated the corner. Not his usual polished corporate headshot, but a grave-faced man standing before a courthouse. The corruption within the Walker Corporation runs deep, Nathan's voice filled the room. For generations, my family has built their fortune on fraud, exploitation, and criminal enterprises. Today, I'm providing federal authorities with comprehensive evidence of these activities. A sharp twinge made Brooke grab the edge of her easel. At 9 months pregnant, every movement had become a reminder of her approaching due date. Rachel muted the TV. Did you know he was planning this? Not exactly. Brooke sank into a chair, one hand protectively cradling her belly. His messages warned about board meetings, money moving offshore, but this? Look at this. Rachel handed her the tablet, open to the New York Times arts section. They're calling your work prophetic? That series about the crumbling golden towers? They're saying you exposed the truth through art before it became news. The coverage was explosive. Financial networks dissected the Walker Corporation's fraudulent dealings. Social media erupted with clips from Nathan's press conference. Art critics shared images of Brooke's exhibitions, drawing direct connections between her symbolic elements and newly revealed crimes. Madison appeared at the door, phone in hand. Your gallery's being swarmed by reporters. They're calling you the artistic oracle of the Walker scandal. Another twinge, stronger this time. Brooke breathed through it, trying to focus on the TV where Nathan was speaking again. I understand the cost of this revelation, he was saying. To my family, to our employees, to everyone affected. But the greater cost would be allowing these crimes to continue. I particularly regret the added attention this may bring to my former wife, whose art has been unfairly drawn into this situation. Former wife, Brooke repeated softly. At least he's acknowledging that part. The pain returned, more insistent. Rachel noticed her grimace. Brooke? Just Braxton Hicks, she insisted, but uncertainty crept into her voice. Tyler Matthews was calling now. The media's connecting every element in your paintings to specific crimes, he reported. The golden chains? They match actual transaction records. The shadowy figures? They're identifying board members. Did you know? I painted what I felt, Brooke explained, pausing as another wave of discomfort passed. What I feared. What I suspected after seeing those documents. Your art is being treated like a visual testimony, Tyler continued. The FBI wants to talk to you about. Rachel took the phone. Not today, Tyler. She studied her sister's face. How long have you been having contractions? They're not contractions, Brooke protested, but her body disagreed. The pain was becoming rhythmic, unmistakable. Madison was already moving. I'll get the hospital bag. On TV, financial experts were estimating the scope of the Walker family's crimes. Billions in fraud. Decades of manipulation. A criminal empire exposed not just by whistleblowers and documents, but by art that had seen through its golden facade. Your last exhibition, Rachel said, helping Brooke to her feet. The pregnant woman emerging from golden shadows. You knew this was coming? I knew something was coming. Brooke paused, breathing through another contraction. Nathan's warnings, the documents, the surveillance. I painted what I couldn't say. Her phone buzzed with Nathan's message. I'm sorry for the media storm. Are you safe? Another contraction answered before she could. This one couldn't be denied. Hospital, Madison announced, returning with the bag. Now. As they helped her to the car, reporters were already gathering at the end of the private road. News of her location had leaked. The story was too perfect. The artist who painted the truth giving birth as the empire fell. Your timing, Rachel muttered, navigating past the media vans, is either perfect or terrible. Brooke clutched her belly, feeling her child move beneath her hands. On her phone, headlines continued to flash. Walker Corporation stock plummets, FBI raids Walker offices, artistic prophecy. Anderson's paintings predicted fall, Nathan Walker. Whistleblower or damage control? The contractions were 5 minutes apart now, undeniable as the truth her art had revealed. As they reached the hospital, one final message came from Nathan. Our child deserves a world without these shadows. Be safe. Both of you. In the delivery room, between contractions, Brooke could hear the TV from the nurse's station still covering the story. Her paintings flashed across the screen, each one now seen not just as art, but as evidence, prophecy, truth told in colors and shadows. Focus on your breathing, the nurse instructed, but Brooke was already focusing on something else. The next chapter of their story, about to begin in the midst of falling empires and revealed truths. Sometimes, she whispered to her unborn child, the most powerful art comes from the moments between endings and beginnings. Another contraction built, strong and purposeful as justice finally served. Her blood pressure's too high, Dr. Phillips announced, studying the monitors with growing concern. We need to prepare for an emergency C-section. Brooke gripped Rachel's hand as another contraction tore through her. The delivery room had become a blur of activity, nurses moving with urgent efficiency. Outside, the media circus continued, their cameras waiting to capture the next chapter in the Walker scandal. Babies showing signs of distress, a nurse reported. Rachel's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then at Brooke. Nathan's downstairs. He's asking. Let him up, Brooke gasped between contractions. He should be here for this. Nathan arrived just as they were preparing to move her to surgery. He looked disheveled, nothing like the composed whistleblower from the morning's news. Their eyes met across the room, years of pain and secrets suspended in that moment. I came as soon as I heard, he said, hesitating at the doorway. The press outside. Forget the press. Brooke's voice was strained but determined. Your child is coming. The next hours passed in a haze of surgical lights and quiet urgency. Nathan stayed by her head during the C-section, his presence both familiar and strange. When their daughter's first cry pierced the air, Brooke felt tears streaming down her face. She's beautiful, the nurse announced, lifting a tiny, perfect being above the surgical drape. 7 pounds 4 ounces. Lily, Brooke whispered the name she'd chosen months ago. Lily Anderson. Walker, Nathan said softly. If you'll allow it. Lily Anderson Walker. Brooke studied his face, the fear, the hope, the vulnerability she'd never seen before. Okay, she agreed. She should know both sides of her story. In the recovery room, as mother and daughter stabilized, Nathan sat beside the bed, watching Lily sleep in Brooke's arms. The morning's headlines seemed distant now, overshadowed by this smaller, more profound truth. I should have been there, he said finally. For everything. The appointments, the ultrasounds, the preparations. Yes, you should have. Brooke traced Lily's perfect features with a gentle finger. But you're here now. The company's finished, Nathan continued. The FBI has everything. My father, the board members, they're all facing charges. I'll probably have to testify. I know. Brooke shifted carefully, mindful of her stitches. Your warnings, they helped me understand what I was painting. Even if I didn't fully realize it. Your art. Nathan smiled sadly. You saw the truth before any of us had the courage to speak it. Rachel appeared at the door with Madison, both carrying armfuls of baby supplies. They paused, taking in the scene. The media's going crazy, Rachel reported. They want statements from both of you. And the FBI's waiting to schedule interviews? Not today, Brooke said firmly, watching Lily's tiny hand wrap around her finger. Today is just for her. The next few days brought a steady stream of visitors. Doctors, nurses, a rotating guard detail to handle the press. Through it all, Lily remained perfectly serene, unaware that her birth coincided with the fall of an empire. Nathan came each day, learning alongside Brooke how to change diapers, how to swaddle, how to soothe their daughter's occasional cries. In these quiet moments, they found a new kind of truth, one painted not in exposés and evidence, but in midnight feedings and gentle lullabies. Your latest series, he said one evening watching Brooke nurse Lily. The safe harbors, they weren't just about finding refuge, were they? They were about creating it, Brooke corrected. About building something strong enough to weather any storm. Lily stirred in her arms, her eyes, so like Nathan's, blinking open. Outside, reporters still waited, eager for more details about the Walker scandal, about the artist who painted its downfall, about the whistleblower who chose truth over family. But in this room, a different story was unfolding. Brooke watched Nathan gentle Lily's wispy hair, saw the wonder in his face, and understood that some truths couldn't be painted or prosecuted. They could only be lived, one tender moment at a time. I can't undo my mistakes, Nathan said softly, but I want to be part of her life. If you'll let me. Brooke looked down at their daughter, then at the sketchbook beside her bed where she'd been drawing Lily's first days. These weren't works of exposure or prophecy. They were simple captures of love, of beginning, of truth in its purest form. We'll take it one day at a time, she answered. She deserves to know her father, not the Walker heir, not the whistleblower, but you. Just you. That night, after Nathan left and Lily slept peacefully in her hospital bassinet, Brooke began a new sketch. A mother and daughter in gentle light, with a father's silhouette nearby, not fully in the picture, but not fully absent either. Love, like art, sometimes needed time to find its perfect composition. The federal courthouse stood imposing against the autumn sky. Brooke adjusted Lily in her carrier as reporters called out questions. At 3 months old, her daughter remained remarkably calm despite the chaos, her eyes, so like Nathan's, taking in everything with quiet curiosity. Ms. Anderson, will you be presenting your paintings as evidence? Did you intentionally encode financial records in your work? What do you say to accusations that you knew about the Walker crimes all along? Rachel ran interference, guiding them through the media gauntlet. Inside, the courtroom was already packed. Nathan sat at the witness stand, his testimony entering its 3rd day. He looked exhausted but resolute as he detailed decades of his family's financial crimes. The transaction records hidden in offshore accounts, the prosecutor was saying, match exactly with the numerical patterns found in Ms. Anderson's Golden Chain series. Did you notice these details in her work before the investigation? No, Nathan answered honestly. Like everyone else, I only saw the truth after it was too late to hide it. Brooke's art, It saw through our facade before any of us were ready to face it. Lily stirred in her carrier as Brooke took her seat. Nathan's eyes found them immediately, softening at the sight of their daughter. In the 3 months since her birth, he'd proven himself a devoted father, navigating both his testimony preparations and late-night feedings with equal dedication. The evidence against the Walker family was overwhelming. Banking records, insider testimony, and years of documented fraud painted a picture of corruption so deep it had become generational. But it was Brooke's paintings, displayed on large screens in the courtroom, that gave the crimes their visual impact. The prosecution calls Brooke Anderson to the stand. Handing Lily to Rachel, Brooke walked to the witness box. The prosecutors had prepared her for this moment, but nothing could have readied her for the weight of all those eyes, all those expectations. "Ms. Anderson, please explain the symbolism in your crumbling tower's triptych." Brooke studied the images of her work. "I painted what I felt, what I feared, what I began to understand after receiving certain documents. The golden towers represent wealth built on corruption. Their shadows, when analyzed, contain patterns, dates, numbers, connections I didn't fully comprehend at the time. Yet these patterns match exactly with the Walker Corporation's fraudulent transactions?" "Art has its own truth," Brooke replied carefully. "Sometimes the artist's hand knows what the mind hasn't yet processed." As her testimony continued, Lily began to fuss. Nathan, now seated with his lawyers, reached for their daughter automatically. Rachel passed her over, and the sight of the whistleblower cradling his child while his former wife testified against his family created a picture no art could fully capture. The verdict, when it came weeks later, was unanimous. Charles Walker and his board faced decades in prison. The empire they'd built on lies crumbled under the weight of truth. Nathan, as the key witness, received immunity in exchange for his cooperation. "You're the hero of the story," a reporter told him outside the courthouse. "No," Nathan corrected, watching Brooke load a sleeping Lily into her car seat. "I just finally learned how to see what was always there." That evening, in Brooke's new studio overlooking Central Park, she worked on her latest series while Nathan read to Lily nearby. These paintings were different. Neither exposés nor accusations, but explorations of truth in all its complexity. A father finding redemption. A mother discovering strength. A family building something new from the ashes of the old. "The gallery wants to know what to call this collection," Rachel mentioned, reviewing emails on her tablet. Brooke stepped back from her canvas, where golden light mixed with shadows in ways that spoke of both ending and beginning. "Call it Truth's Colors, a story of how love and justice sometimes paint with the same brush." Nathan looked up from Lily's book. "Do you ever regret it? Getting pulled into my family's darkness?" "I regret the pain," Brooke answered honestly. "But not the truth. Never the truth." She touched her canvas, where a family's silhouette emerged from layers of light and shadow. "Sometimes you have to face the darkness to find your way to light." Lily cooed from her father's arms, reaching for the colors that danced across the studio walls. At 3 months, she already showed signs of loving art as much as her mother, her tiny hands grasping at brushes, delighting in splashes of color. "We'll tell her everything someday," Nathan said softly. "About the Walkers, about the choices we made, about how art brought truth to light. We'll tell her about redemption too," Brooke added, adding final touches to her painting. "About how sometimes the hardest truths lead to the most beautiful beginnings." The sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in colors no artist could fully capture. In Brooke's studio, a family found its own kind of masterpiece, not in grandeur or wealth, but in simple moments of shared truth. A father's redemption. A mother's strength. A child's innocent love. These were the colors that would paint their tomorrow, bright and true and purely their own. What would you have done in Brooke's situation? When she discovered the truth about the Walker family through Nathan's documents, she chose to encode the truth in her art rather than going directly to authorities. Was this the right choice? How would you have handled such dangerous knowledge while protecting yourself and your unborn child? Do you think Nathan deserves Brooke's forgiveness? At what point in the story do you think he truly began to change? Was it when he first left to protect them, when he became a whistleblower, or when he saw Lily for the first time? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that explore the complexities of human relationships, courage, and redemption. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights help make our storytelling community even richer. Remember to hit that notification bell to stay updated on more captivating stories that remind us of the power of resilience, love, and the courage to stand for truth.